हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीन बंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। गुरवे गौरचंद्राय राधिकाय तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्ण भक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। हरे कृष्ण। Thank you, dear devotees, for being here to discuss about the Supreme Lord. Doesn't matter whether it's Krishna or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I am happy and I'm glad that we could um, restart our thing. We have done it sporadically on multiple instances. For those devotees who have been there from the past 2.5, 3 years, we have done couple of books. We did the life of Srila Akinchan Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj. That was maybe 2022. Then we had done the life of Srila Vamshidas Babaji Maharaj. That was also pretty much that time. Then we did about 10 to 15 chapters of Krishna book. Then we did the Madhya Leela of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Of course, there was little pending in the Madhya Leela, but almost more than 90% was done. So I thought, why not we continue on the same theme of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, because we did Madhya Leela, so we do not want to um, just leave it as it is. So now we'll go back to Adi Leela. We'll start from the Adi Leela. The reason being, many of us would have this doubt that wait a minute, I think we should start from Adi Leela, then we should go to Madhya Leela, and then we should go to Anti Leela. Why did we start with Madhya Leela first, and then why are we going back to Adi Leela? Well, the basic understanding is Adi Leela is very technical. There is a lot of philosophy that is presented in the initial maybe 10 chapters. On the flip side, Madhya Leela is more story like, and generally we see that when it's too much philosophy, we keep the book to the side. जहां भी बहुत ज्यादा फिलोसफी होता है हम साइड में रख देते हैं। जैसे गीता में बहुत ज्यादा फिलोसफी है, तो यदि भक्त ना हो तो हम शायद उठाकर पढ़ेंगे भी नहीं, राइट। वेयर देयर इज मोर फिलोसफी, देयर वी आर लिटिल, we have our limits. So that's why we started with Madhya Leela. Why? Because there is some storyline and there will be some affinity towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what did he do, where did he travel, etc. Once we have some basic idea, then it makes sense to go back to Adi Leela. Even though it's technical, we will have some affinity, some liking, some interest towards Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So that's why we did Madhya Leela. For those devotees who are not part of it, those classes are still there online. We can hear when we get time. And now we will go back to the Adi Leela of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Most of us would have heard this book, Chaitanya Charitamrita. For those who have not heard, the author is Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. I'm pretty sure this book is also there in our homes, um, as it is, just like we have Bhagavad Gita as it is. Likewise, Chaitanya Charitamrita will be there as it is. Mhm. So the history to this book is pretty interesting. We see that Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, who is the Prayojan Acharya of the Sampradaya. Mhm. We have Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. Sambandha means establishing our relationship with the Lord. And the deity for Sambandha is Shri Radha Madan Mohan. Then is Abhideya. Abhideya means the process of establishing Sambandha or the process of attaining God. Hmm. So Krishna Sambandha, whom should we establish Sambandha with? Krishna. Krishna Sambandha. But what is the process? Bhakti Abhideya. भगवान को पाने का पथ क्या है? भक्ति है. भक्ति के अतिरिक्त और कोई नहीं है. और कुछ भी नहीं है. We find Lord Shiva tells to Mother Parvati, उमा कहूँ मैं अनुभव अपना सत हरि भजन जगत सब सपना. कि हे उमा, ओ पार्वती, इस जगत में केवल एक सत्य है. देयर इज ओनली वन ट्रूथ. So I'll be going back in English and Hindi. So I personally feel that the sweetness that is there in Hindi is not there much in English. हिंदी का अलग ही एक स्वाद होता है और मेरे महाराज जी शिला राधा गोविंद महाराज भी हिंदी में ही बोलते हैं. So I'll keep switching back between English and Hindi. So Lord Shiva says this to Mother Parvati. Uma kahu मैं अनुभव अपना. Hey Uma, I am telling you my anubhav. I am telling you my experience. What is my experience? Sat Hari Bhajan. That if there is one truth in this world, that is Hari Bhajan. यदि कोई सत्य है, वास्तविक सत्य है इस जगत में, वो है हरि भजन. It is not IPL. It is the season of IPL, and it's that time of the year where for next 2 months people are hooked on, especially during this time, 7 to 10 p.m. maybe Indian Standard Time. But that's not Sat. Lord Shiva says, Sat Hari Bhajan, Jagat Sab Sapana. The whole world is simply a dream. There is only one reality, there is only one truth. That is Hari Bhajan, Bhakti. So, what is Bhakti? It is Abhideya, is the process. So, Krishna Sambandha, the Sambandha is Madan Mohan, that is Krishna. Bhakti Abhideya, mm, the process to attain him is Bhakti, and the deity is Shri Radha Govinda. And then finally, Prema Prayojan. The Prayojan means goal. What is our goal? What are we trying to accomplish by doing all this? ये सब करने से क्या प्राप्त होना चाहिए? प्रेम. है ना? भगवान के प्रति प्रेम. यदि ये सब कर ली और प्रेम प्राप्त नहीं हुआ, तो फिर श्रम एव ही केवलम. Then what we are doing is not a complete waste, but it's also good to have a goal in front of us. So prema prayojan. So Krishna Sambandha, Bhakti Abhideya, Prema Prayojan. Hmm? So the deities are Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Govinda, Radha Gopinath, systematically. And likewise for Sambandha Tattva, our Acharya is Srila Sanatan Goswami. For Abhideya, it is Srila Rupa Goswami. And similarly for Prayojan Tattva, the Acharya is Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. So that's how the scriptures explain. Sanatan, Rupa Goswami, and Srila Das Goswami Pad. So Raghunath Das Goswami is the Acharya for Prayojan Tattva. He is the embodiment of how one can attain prema in their life or how a sadhak should be. It's explained Raghunath Das Goswami's bhakti was so intense, इतने तीव्र भाव से भक्ति करते थे that his sadhana was compared to the lines on a rock. When you draw lines on a rock, I don't know how many would have done it, maybe when we were small. But when you draw lines on a rock, ये प्राय देखा जाता है कि जब आप रेखाएं लगाते हैं एक पत्थर पे, वो मिटता नहीं है. It doesn't fade away. Once you draw, it's there for pretty long time. So Raghunath Das Goswami's sadhana in our Shastra is explained like that. His sadhana was like the lines on a rock. That come what may, चाहे जो हो जाए, whatever happens, he wouldn't shake. His sadhana was rock solid. They were like the lines on a rock. But normally it is in our sadhana is like it's like a line on a paper. We draw and then we can rub it with a eraser also. But Das Goswami was very pakka in his sadhana. So Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, he came from a very aristocratic family. बहुत धनी परिवार से थे श्रीला रघुनाथ दास गोस्वामी। और ये लिखा गया है कि इतना धन था उनके पास, इतना धन था, he had so much wealth that his father was the zamindar, his father was the landlord. And during those days, you're talking about 500 years in the past, to be a landlord to hold lands was a very aristocratic thing. So Raghunath Das Goswami was so rich, but in spite of all that, he heard about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He heard about the holy name from Haridas Thakur. So Haridas Thakur, as he would travel, one time came to the house of Raghunath Das Goswami when Das Goswami was small, and he heard this conversation about the glories of holy name, glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in no time, Raghunath Das Goswami had this mood of being with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, understanding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wanting to leave everything. And it's a long story, I wouldn't get into the details, but Raghunath Das Goswami tried multiple times to leave his home and go and meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. घर से भाग जाते थे। आजकल कई बार हम देखते हैं कि बच्चे कई कई बार घर से भागते हैं, they run away from home, and the reasons may be very different. Sometimes or most times, we find the youth, they run away from house because they want to marry someone and the parents don't allow, or it's an intercaste marriage, and we see next day in the newspaper, Times of India, the boy and girl, they run away from the house. But very rare you'll find the child, the boy or the girl runs away from the house to get God. It doesn't happen. Very rare. I wouldn't say it has never happened, बट इट्स अ वेरी रेयर थिंग। आज के जमाने में यदि बच्चा घर छोड़कर भगवान प्राप्ति के लिए जा रहा है, तो ये बहुत विरला है। शायद ही ऐसा को होगा। बट वी फाइंड देयर आर एग्जांपल्स। रघुनाथ दास गोस्वामी वाज वन 500 years back who tried multiple times to leave his home, but somehow the guards who were there, because he was coming from a very rich family, these guards would somehow get him back, and they would try everything possible so that he shouldn't go to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Mahaprabhu was already a sannyasi. So they thought यदि सन्यासी का इतना संग करेगा तो क्या पता घर बार छोड़ देगा, शायद ये भी सन्यासी बन जाएगा। Many times I've heard this from many of the youth that in families where parents are maybe not devotees and the child is associating too much with ISKCON. So many times the people say that, oh, if you're associating so much with ISKCON, maybe you will also become brahmachari. Maybe you will also be like them, be a monk or whatever. So it's a common thing and it's understandable, because when you associate a lot with someone, you start generating their traits and their qualities. जैसा संग वैसा रंग. So the parents of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, they thought to themselves that if he associates with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a lot, Mahaprabhu is Virakta Chudamani, he is Yatinam Shiromani. One name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Yatinam Shiromani, which means Mahaprabhu is Shiromani. He is the best among sannyasis. सन्यासियों में श्रेष्ठ है चैतन्य महाप्रभु, यति नाम शिरोमणि. I remember in the previous apartment that I would live, there was one devotee, uh, and he had a small Gauranga deity, and the name of the Gauranga deity was Yatinam Shiromani. And so much so that in that apartment, the name of the deity was Yatinam Shiromani, and our Wi-Fi password was also Yatinam Shiromani. So it was a very difficult password to crack, but the password was Yatinam Shiromani. But in our ISKCON circles, we see it's oftentimes I feel it's little easy to crack Wi-Fi names and Wi-Fi passwords. Wherever you go, the passwords will be Haribol 108, Radha 108, Krishna 108, Gaur Nitai 108. Uh, Here also, um, there's one devotee who lives close to me. So when I walk to the temple, I have to pass through his house. उनका घर क्रॉस करके मुझे मंदिर जाना है, बाजू में ही है. So every time when I'm walking through his house or when I'm near his house, my Wi-Fi naturally gets connected, because if you have already been in that area and you have put the password, so then it gets connected. So his thing is also like that, Jagannath 108. So I feel oftentimes in our ISKCON circles, it's very easy to understand. अरे ये ISKCON वाला है. It will be Jagannath, Gauranga, Nityananda, Radharani, Krishna, and there will be some 108 in that. Hmm? So we find Srila Raghunath Das Goswami was coming from such a rich, such an aristocratic family. He practically had everything. सब कुछ था उनके पास. Still, he had this desire of leaving home and going and meeting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So they tried multiple times. They even tried to tie him with a rope. And before they tried to tie him with a rope, they had gotten him married. They had gotten him married to a girl. And even after marriage, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami left home to go and meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the next time when they tried to tie him with ropes, the father, he said, what is the use of doing all this? When the rope of marriage cannot tie him, what will the rope of this world do? Let him go. He belongs to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let him go. We have tried enough. We are not able to hold him. Let him just go. So Raghunath Das Goswami, in one of those instances, when he wanted to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was so much desperation to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that it is explained he had practically in a boat, he filled the boat with gold coins and kept it in the middle of the street. And he told the local villagers, take whatever you want. जो भी आपको धन राशि लूटना है आप लूट लीजिए क्योंकि हमें तो कुछ चाहिए नहीं. हमें सबसे बड़ा धन प्राप्त हो गया है, वो है श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु. आई डोंट आई डोंट वांट एनी ऑफ दीज थिंग्स एंड दे डोंट मीन एनीथिंग टू मी. Please take it. It's like in the present day, if you have X amount of rupees, you will not put that in a boat and keep it in the middle of the street, right? You wouldn't do that, even if you're devotees. But Raghunath Das Goswami, for him, the money meant nothing. He kept it in the middle of the street and just ran towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one of those instances when he ran towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so that no one should catch him, he didn't go the normal route. Normally, if he was going in a particular route, he didn't go in that route. He took another way to go and meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which was exactly opposite direction. Why? So that no one sees him, the guards don't catch him, the locals don't catch him and get him back to his father. So that no one understands he's going to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He went in a completely opposite direction. For 12 days, Raghunath Das Goswami was walking and walking and walking and walking and walking. There was there was no GPS. There was no alternate direction. He was just walking, and in all those 12 days, he would just have little milk. That too, if he found, maybe once in 3 days. And then finally, after all this walking, after 12 days, he goes and meets Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So much eagerness just to be with Gauranga Mahaprabhu that you're ready to leave everything. Actually, it is explained when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is there, anything is possible. There's a beautiful verse that comes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it's a good verse to maybe even write down or memorize. कथंचन स्मृते यस्मिन् दुष्करं सुकरं भवेत् विस्मृतं विपरीतं स्यात् श्री चैतन्य नमामितम्. It comes in the Adi Lila, chapter 14, text 1. कथंचन स्मृते यस्मिन् दुष्करं सुकरं भवेत् विस्मृतं विपरीतं स्यात् श्री चैतन्य नमामितम्. What does it mean? Kathanchana, that somehow or the other, कैसे भी. Kathanchana smrite yasmin. Smrite means to remember. Yasmin, this person. Who's this person? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Kathanchana smrite yasmin. If somehow or the other, if we can remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then what happens? Duskaram sukaram bhavet. That which is duskaram, which is difficult to obtain, sukaram will become very easy to obtain. जो प्राप्त करना बहुत मुश्किल है वो एकदम आराम से प्राप्त हो जाएगा. क्यों? केवल महाप्रभु की स्मरण से. So this verse speaks about the glories of remembering Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kathanchana smrite yasmin. Just by remembering Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, duskaram sukaram bhavet. That which was very difficult to get. अपने बलबूते पे जो नहीं प्राप्त होगा और ऐसी कई सारी चीज है. Many things are there in life that we would have experienced that we try and try and try and try and try and somehow it doesn't work out, right? Because we also have our limitations, but just by remembering Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, duskaram sukaram bhave, that which was impossible by us will now become possible. On the flip side, अब ये हुआ भगवान को स्मरण करने से. If we forget Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what happens? Exact opposite. विस्मृतम विपरीतम स्यात्. यदि विस्मृति हो जाए, यदि महाप्रभु को हम भूल जाए, तो क्या होगा? विपरीतम स्यात्. The exact opposite will happen, which means that which you thought was very easy to obtain will now become difficult. Why? Because you have forgotten Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Namamitam. To that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who makes the impossible into possible and possible into impossible just by his remembrance and forgetfulness. To that Gauranga Mahaprabhu, I offer my obeisances. So it's a good verse to memorize. That's a um, small homework if you're interested in memorizing verses. Um, that's a very nice verse that we can memorize and maybe write it down and wherever in maybe in our phone or yes, one devotee has already put it in the group. So wherever we are, maybe in front of our desk, in our phone, or wherever it is, whichever gadget or wherever our eyes fall on, we can have that verse. And ideally, if before getting up, if we can have this verse in front of us, so we get up and we read this verse and then we start our day, reminding ourselves to remember and speak about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that is also one of the reasons why we again continued with the theme of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hmm. Because Kathanchana Smrtai Yasmin Duskaram Sukaram Bhaved Vismritam Viparitam Syat Shri Chaitanya Namamitam. To that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we offer our obeisances. So Raghunath Das Goswami was wanting to meet that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hmm. So finally he goes and meets Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after more than 12 days. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gets to know, Mahaprabhu connects him to Swarup Damodar Goswami. Mahaprabhu tells Raghunath Das Goswami, you be with Swarup Damodar Goswami. From today, you are Swarupera Raghu, which means your Swarup Damodar Goswami is Raghunath. Swarupera Raghu. Because in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we will see later, there are some other Raghus also, some other Raghunaths also. So to make sure they were addressed correctly, Mahaprabhu named Raghunath Das Goswami as Swarupera Raghu. That Raghunath Das Goswami, who was managed or who was guided or whose counselor was Swarup Damodar Goswami. So sometimes, we would have heard like in Radha Gopinath temple in Mumbai, you have the counselor system to approach or get diksha from His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. You have a Siksha Guru or a counselor, however you call it. So even Raghunath Das Goswami, who's the Prayojan Acharya, even he had a Siksha Guru or a counselor in the form of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami. The the path to obtaining Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for him was through Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami. And who is Swarup Damodar Goswami? Swarup Damodar Goswami, Sri Lalita Sakhi. Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar were the dearest to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Swarup Damodar Goswami is Lalita Sakhi and Ramananda Rai is Vishaka Sakhi. Hmm. So for all practical purposes, Raghunath Das Goswami, who's the Prayojan Acharya, was put under the guidance of Lalita Sakhi, who was Swarup Damodar Goswami, so that he could obtain Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Srimati Radharani. So we go through Lalita Sakhi. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that personality for whom our Srila Raghunath Das Goswami was so fascinated and so uh, he had sold his heart completely at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we see by worshipping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the aim and objective of worshipping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so that we can get Krishna. In Kali Yuga, it is practically impossible to get Krishna without the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Impossible. I wouldn't even say there is little possibility that it's impossible. Without knowing and understanding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and without being the recipient of the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can never get Krishna. Impossible. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the pathway for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Let me be more specific. For the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu are the pathway through which we can get Sri Krishna, through which we can break free in this repeated uh, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Chakra. One devotee was saying this to me, very, very, very interesting. I heard it yesterday. In Mayapur, one time His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj was walking, and from the opposite side, Sripad Jananivas Prabhu was on a cycle. Hmm? So both of them saw each other, and Radhanath Swami Maharaj offered obeisances. And Sripad Jananivas Prabhu also got down from the cycle and he offered obeisances, and both embraced and both spoke to each other. And His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, in a very funny way, he said, anyone who sees Sripad Jananivas Prabhu in this cycle will be freed from the cycle of birth and death. Hmm? Just by seeing Jananivas Prabhu on a cycle, you'll be freed from the cycle of birth and death. गंगारा पारशा होइले पाश्चात्य पावन दर्शने पवित्र करो ऐ तुम्हारा गुण. Narottam Das Thakur says that Ganga Devi is very powerful. Why? Because she can completely pure us. She can, whatever sins we have, she can completely um, take those sins and make us pure. But the challenge is for Ganga Devi, we have to go to Ganga Devi. Ganga Devi doesn't come to where we are. If we are there in Mumbai or Calcutta, Hyderabad, or whichever part of India or outside India, Ganga Devi doesn't come to us. But Narottam Das Thakur says the sadhus are so merciful that what Ganga Devi doesn't do, the sadhus do. The sadhus come to us, right? Wherever we are, sadhus come, they give us association, they come to our homes. Ganga Devi doesn't do that. So Narottam Das Thakur says Ganga Devi is great, but sadhus are superior because they do something that even Ganga Devi does not. And Darshane pavitro ai tumharo gun. Just by looking at a sadhu, one becomes purified. For Ganga Devi, you have to go. You have to take dips. Right? पानी में डुबकी लगाना पड़ता है. And then you come out. But for sadhu, just by their glance, either their glance or your glance on them, Darshane pavitra karo ai tumharo gun. So, as Radhanath Swami Maharaj said, anyone who sees Shripad Jananivas Prabhu on a cycle today will be freed from the cycle of birth and death. So that's the mood of worshipping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Finally, we see Srila Raghunath Das Goswami when he was there with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to wrap up his pastimes, and Mahaprabhu left this world. Mahaprabhu went back home. He entered into the deity of Tota Gopinath. Hmm. Tota basically means garden in Odia. Tota means garden. So that garden where Gopinath was found is Tota Gopinath. Similarly, we have Lord Shiva's temple there, Yameshwar Tot. So Tota basically means garden. So Tota Gopinath. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enters the deity of Tota Gopinath, wraps up his pastime, and slowly Gadadhar Pandit also leaves, and one after another, so many sadhus start leaving this world. But Raghunath Das Goswami was still trying to hold on to his life because Swarup Damodar Goswami was still there. But finally, when even Swarup Damodar Goswami left this world, it was too much for Raghunath Das Goswami. That personality with whom he had stayed and learnt about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Swarup Damodar Goswami also left this world, Gadadhar Pandit also left this world, Mahaprabhu also left this world. Hmm. It was too much for Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami thought to himself, there is no purpose of my existence. हम जी कर क्या करें. जो चैतन्य महाप्रभु जिनके लिए हम सब कुछ त्याग कर आए थे, वो चैतन्य महाप्रभु अंतर्ध्यान हो गए. गदाधर पंडित अंतर्ध्यान हो गए. स्वरूप दामोदर गोस्वामी जिनसे हम सब कुछ सीखे थे, सब कुछ प्राप्त किए थे, वो भी अंतर्ध्यान हो गए. अब हम जी कर क्या करें. इससे अच्छा यही है कि हम आत्महत्या कर लें. आई विल जस्ट कमिट सुइसाइड. I don't want to stay because the place where there is no devotees and no Mahaprabhu, why should I be there? This is the mood of a devotee. For um, the place where there are no devotees, no temples, No association, a devotee doesn't feel happy to be there. मन विचलित रहता है कि कब वो दिन आएगा जब हम भक्तों के साथ संग करें. Because the association of devotees are something that everyone yearns for. Because progress in Krishna consciousness happens by association with devotees. By being alone, it will never happen. How much ever we think we are Mahabhagavat, by staying alone, advancement will never happen. Why? Because Narottam Das Thakur himself says, एकाकिया मार नाही पायो बोल हरिनाम संकीर्तने तुम्ही कृपा कोरी श्रद्धा बिंदु दिया. That my dear Lord, if you shower mercy, Shraddha Bindu diya, if you give me one drop of Shraddha, Deho Krishna Nama, Jane. My dear Lord, by your mercy, I will be able to understand you. But how will your mercy flow in my life? Through the Vaishnavas. Ekaki Amar Nahi Poyable. By being alone, it's not possible. So, as much as possible, we should try to see we are in devotee association. Because we have got one human life, and in that one human life, if we are fortunate that we have got the association of devotees, we should try to make the best use out of it. क्या पता आगे चलकर मिले या ना मिले. क्या पता आगे चलकर भक्त मिले या ना मिले. क्या पता आगे चलकर मंदिर मिले या ना मिले. Hmm? If Aurangzeb 500 years back can break temples, it's very much possible that in the future also that will happen, right? So how much ever association we can take at this point, we should try to do that. Be in places where there are devotees, as much as possible. So for Raghunath Das Goswami, it was very difficult because now nothing was there. And imagine, we are not talking about a normal person. We're talking about Raghunath Das Goswami, whose sadhana was like the lines on a rock, who was so pakka in bhakti. For him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not there. His counselor is not there. Raghunath Das Goswami thought to himself, it's better I go to Vrindavan Dham, climb on top of Girirajji and jump from Giriraj Govardhan so that I will end my life once and for all. Nahi rehna hame. I cannot take this anymore. Raghunath Das Goswami goes, he walks to Vrindavan, and as he has this desire of ending his life, in Vrindavan, he meets Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Rupa and Sanatan meet Raghunath Das Goswami and they ask him. And Raghunath Das Goswami explains the whole thing and says, अब बहुत हो गया अब हमें आत्महत्या करनी है I want to give up my life. Rupa Goswami said, what do you mean? You have been with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so much. Why do you want to give up your life? And finally, Rupa Goswami told him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu loves you. Mahaprabhu loves you like no one else. Raghunath Das Goswami said, how do you even know that? Rupa Goswami said, look at what he has given you. He has given you a Govardhan Shila, right? And Raghunath Das Goswami said, yes, he has given me a Govardhan Shila. Rupa Goswami said, which means Mahaprabhu wants you to stay in Govardhan. He doesn't want to give up. He will not like if you give up your life. Why? Because Sanatan Goswami had also tried this in the past. In Madhya Lila, we saw this, that how Sanatan Goswami tries to end his life by coming in front of the cart of Jagannath. And Mahaprabhu chastises him. And Mahaprabhu tells him, hey Sanatan, this body is not yours. It is my body because you have surrendered to me. So I have the right to end it. You don't have the right. So Sanatan Goswami who's standing here, he says, don't, Raghunath Das Goswami, don't do it because I tried to do it and Mahaprabhu was not happy with it. So this is part two. He will not be happy if you give up your life. So Rupa Goswami tells him that you have the Govardhan Shila. With that Govardhan Shila, you should live in Govardhan. And Mahaprabhu has also given you Gunjamala. Gunjamala signifies Srimati Radharani, which means Mahaprabhu wants you to live in Govardhan in that place which is closer and the most beloved of Srimati Radharani. Which is that place? Sri Radhakund. Radhakund is the place in Govardhan which is the most dearest to Srimati Radharani. Rupa and Sanatan Goswami tell Das Goswami that, my dear Das Goswami, please go to Radhakund. But Raghunath Das Goswami said, what am I supposed to do there? हम क्या करें राधा कुंड में बैठकर हम क्या करें. Srila Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, they tell Das Goswami, you have been with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for 16 years. If there's anyone who knows Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the best, it is you. You have seen him day in and day out. And that too, you've seen him from the eyes of Swarup Damodar Goswami. आप चैतन्य महाप्रभु को इतने नजदीक से देखे, आप महाप्रभु को इतना बेहतर जानते हैं। यदि आप राधा कुंड में बैठकर रोज चैतन्य महाप्रभु के बारे में चर्चा करें, रोज उनके बारे में बात करें, तो जो ब्रजवासी गण महाप्रभु को देखे नहीं है, केवल सुने हैं, केवल श्रवण किए हैं, यदि यदि वो आपके मुखारविंद से चैतन्य महाप्रभु के बारे में सुने, तो सब धन्य हो जाएंगे। पीपल विल बी बेनिफिटेड इफ दे फ्रॉम योर लोटस लिप्स हियर अबाउट Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Can you sit in Radhakund and speak about Gauranga? Raghunath Das Goswami said, yes, this is possible. This is something I can do. I have seen him so much for 16 years. I can definitely speak about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pad. He goes to Radhakund and starts speaking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu every day for about three hours. In the evenings, he would speak for about 3 hours every single day. Because during the morning, he would have a sadhana. He would offer 3,000 obeisances to Krishna every day. 2,000 obeisances to the Brajavasis. So that's 5,000 obeisances in a day. Mm. So no need of any gym, no gym membership, nothing. It's everyday constant gym. 500 obeisances every single day. And when we say Brajavasis, not just humans, it can be even cows and monkeys and any Brajavasi for that matter. And in the evenings, he would speak about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And as he would speak about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the evenings, in fact, in Radhakund, um, when we do Radhakund Parikrama, that tree is still there under which Raghunath Das Goswami spoke Chaitanya Charitamrita. That tree is still there. So maybe sometime when you get a chance, or when we get a chance, we can definitely go to that place and speak about Mahaprabhu under the tree where Raghunath Das Goswami spoke about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So as he would speak about Gauranga Mahaprabhu every day, there would be so many Brajavasis in the audience. And one such personality was Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So you would be wondering, we started with Chaitanya Charitamrita, पूरा क्लास तो रघुनाथ दास गोस्वामी के ऊपर चला गया. So Kaviraj Goswami was sitting in the audience when Raghunath Das Goswami would speak. And as Raghunath Das Goswami would speak, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami would start making notes. लिखते थे, because it's a good habit to write down. When we hear, it's a good habit to write down. Either during the class or after the class, whatever works best. So he would write whatever Das Goswami would say, he would start writing it. Those notes of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that he attended from the live classes of Raghunath Das Goswami on the banks of Radha Kund 500 years back are nothing but the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is the compilation of the handwritten notes of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that he heard from the live classes of Raghunath Das Goswami on the banks of Radha Kund. तो उसको जब कंपाइल किए, वो बना चैतन्य चरितामृत. That is the history of this book. So I thought of us going through the history to understand how this book was even written before we see about Chaitanya Charitamrita. And interestingly, when Kaviraj Goswami, he wrote all the notes not with this desire of compiling. उनमें मन में कोई इच्छा नहीं थी कि हम कंपाइल करें. But the Brajavasis who were there, they inspired him so much that they said, "You're the only person who can proficiently and eloquently glorify Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why don't you write a book?" And then we see when he went to Madan Mohan's garland fell down. And that was an indication Madan Mohan also wanted Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami to write. Another interesting point is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami had never met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Imagine writing a book about a person whom you have never met, which only proves the point that bhakti is beyond meeting someone. Even if you have not met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even if you have not met Prabhupada, if someone can read the books and can resonate with the wavelength, then it's only external to say that, well, I have not met the person. But internally, the heart will be so surcharged that you will be beyond any doubt whether I have met or not. Hmm. So Kaviraj Goswami, he ends up writing the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And before I end, there's this one point that I wanted to share. Before Chaitanya Charitamrita was written, we see there was Vrindavan Das Thakur and Lochan Das Thakur who had also written their books, right? And there's this one common understanding that Vrindavan Das Thakur and Lochan Das Thakur both wrote their books as Chaitanya Mangal, and then Vrindavan Das Thakur changed it to Chaitanya Bhagwat. तो ये माना जाता है कि पहले वृंदावन दास ठाकुर और लोचन दास ठाकुर दोनों ग्रंथ लिखे थे और दोनों ने ग्रंथ का नाम चैतन्य मंगल रखा था. And then later Vrindavan Das Thakur got to know that, oh, there's already a Chaitanya Mangal, so he renamed it to Chaitanya Bhagwat. But actually, this understanding is not completely true for multiple reasons. Why? Because one, Vrindavan Das Thakur wrote his book way before Lochan Das Thakur. Right? If the author has already written a book, then for him to go and then change his name when he has already written before Lochan Das Thakur would not be a proper understanding. If someone has written 50 years in the past and आज के जमाने में यदि कोई ग्रंथ लिख रहा है, so the person who's writing now will have to change the name, not the person who wrote 50 years back, right? So one, that understanding is not right, that Vrindavan Das Thakur changed the name of the book to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Second, another understanding is um, the book that Vrindavan Das Thakur wrote, that is Chaitanya Mangal, that book was a combination of verses and songs. And it is believed the Brajvasis took the verses out of that book and named it into Chaitanya Bhagavat. That's the second understanding. So they say the book was already Chaitanya Mangal, just the verses got separated and the book was named Chaitanya Bhagavat. But again, this is not completely verifiable because there are multiple sources that comes for it. But again, cannot be denied blatantly as such. So this is one understanding that we can have. Another understanding that I recently got to know um, is there's an author, and he very beautifully he says in a book called as Chaitanya Chariter Upadhan, and in that he says that the book was always Chaitanya Bhagavat. He says the book was always Chaitanya Bhagavat of Vrindavan Das Thakur, and the book was always Chaitanya Mangal of Lochan Das Thakur. But during those days, there was a tradition wherein any book that speaks about Mahima, that speaks about glorification, they would call it Mangal. Like अगर दुर्गा के बारे में है तो दुर्गा whatever Mangal. If it is about no Lord Shiva, no Shivji Mangal, whatever. So any book that speaks about glorification, the locals who were there, Navadip Vasis, Brajvasis, सब में एक मंगल डाल देते थे. So that's how one author writes that even though the book was Chaitanya Bhagavat, but because it glorified Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they started calling it Chaitanya Mangal, Chaitanya Mangal. So Chaitanya Mangal was a colloquial name the book was given, but the book's name was already Chaitanya Bhagavat of Vrindavan Das Thakur. And Lochan Das Thakur's book was anyway Chaitanya Mangal. So uh, this is an understanding that Hari Parshad Prabhu told me, and he found a Bengali reference for this in a few books. So this is again an understanding that we can have, that Vrindavan Das Thakur's book was always Chaitanya Bhagavat, and Lochan Das Thakur's book was always Chaitanya Mangal, and Vrindavan Das Thakur didn't change his name according to Lochan Das Thakur, but the understanding is the locals who were there, they had given the name of Vrindavan Das Thakur's book as Chaitanya Mangal because it glorified Chaitanya Mahaprabhu profusely. एक एक आदत था, मानो ये यदि प्रशंसा हो रही है तो सब में मंगल मंगल डाल देते थे. But the book was always Chaitanya Bhagavat, and the colloquial name was Chaitanya Mangal. That's another understanding. So these books were already written, and then came Kaviraj Goswami's Chaitanya Charitamrita. Hmm. These books that spoke about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu earlier, they primarily spoke about Mahaprabhu's pastimes to sannyas or pre-sannyas, so to say. But after sannyas, whatever happened was what Raghunath Das Goswami saw in Jagannath Puri. And that Raghunath Das Goswami, when he spoke, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami wrote it. So Chaitanya Charitamrita is that book that speaks a lot about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sannyas leelas that the other books don't extensively talk about. That's the difference. Like in school, you have distinguish, you have like three books. You have Chaitanya Bhagavad, Chaitanya Mangal, and then Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Chaitanya Charitamrita's speciality is it speaks about Mahaprabhu's um, sannyas leela extensively. We see in Madhya Leela and Anta Leela. It's fully just speaking about Mahaprabhu's sannyas. So that was a introduction to the book called Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita as to how the book was written, where who's Raghunath Das Goswami, what is Sambandha Abhiday and Prayojan, how Das Goswami ran from home, met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how he became Swarupera Raghu, and how underneath the tree it was written, etc. So that was a quick introduction to this book. We will continue from tomorrow as to what Kaviraj Goswami writes in this book, what he heard and what he wrote down. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you.